The first scream isn't human. It is iron, old iron, shrinking in the night as the cold rolls down from the hills. A rust-bitten steel box sits crooked in the ditch beside the county road, its sides creaking like a ship's hull, its edges flaking the color of dried blood. In the truck's headlamps, the box looks like a coffin for a giant. The farmer kills the engine. Silence takes the pasture. Then the prairie answers. Crickets, a barred owl, wind worrying the grass like a hand sifting curtains. Somewhere beyond the fence, cattle shift and huff. He steps out, boots kissing the gravel. This is the kind of night that makes every breath feel borrowed. He walks around the box, palms skimming rust, fingertips coming away red-orange. The padlock is a knuckled scar. He tries it, feels the stubborn refusal. Not tonight, he mutters. His breath smokes in the beam. Behind him, a pickup blasts by, horn blaring, laughter tossed out the window. "Hey, Carter! That scrap metal better grow corn." The taunt trails into the dark. He smiles without teeth. People in this town love a chorus when it isn't their money on the line. He backs the truck closer, rattling his hitch chain. The links clack like teeth. The world narrows to the work. Crank, tug, breathe. The container shifts, squeals, gives an inch. The scent of iron dust fills his nose, metallic and damp, like a penny left on the tongue. He feels it in his molars. He hauls little by little until the box concedes to the slope and slides onto the flatbed with a groan that seems too alive. When the last shackle snaps, the night falls quiet again, complete and watchful. Headlights carve a tunnel through cottonwoods on the road home. The farmer keeps one eye on the mirror, on the black rectangle sulking in the dark. Storm webs flash on the far horizon, heat lightning crawling around its corners. He thinks of debt and drought and how a man can drown in the same place he learned to swim. He thinks of his father's hands, the first tools he ever trusted. At the gate, the dog comes trotting, a mottled shadow with a wet nose and burrs in his tail. The dog sniffs the trailer and stiffens, then circles, hackles rising. "Easy, Rusty," the farmer says, which is what he always says when something inside him wants to run. The dog listens but doesn't like it. Neither does the wind. It shifts, carrying a smell that doesn't belong to the farm. Old oil, cold stone, a whisper of paper that should have burned long ago and didn't. He parks by the hay barn, where the moonlight is weakest. The container sulks in that dimness as if grateful. Something about its proportions is wrong. 2 inches taller than comfort, a hand's width, narrower than habit. He finds himself counting the rivets because counting is a prayer that doesn't offend anyone. He stops at 50 and wipes his hand on his jeans. The farmer, Samuel Carter, sets a palm to the rust again and feels the faintest tremor through the steel, as if a long-held breath inside the box just let itself out. Samuel Carter doesn't like to gamble. He grows corn where corn remembers his father. He grows beans where beans forgive the soil. He fixes things with wire and patience because wire and patience are cheaper than pride. Folks in Miller County will tell you Sam is a quiet man, the kind whose boots say more than his mouth. They'll tell you drought took 2 summers from him and the bank took the winter after that, and that grief took the rest. His wife Rebecca gone quick and mean like a match you don't see until you smell the smoke. They'll say the land loves him anyway, the way a dog loves a man who keeps coming back. He bought the container at a county auction where everything had a story and none of the stories were good. The auctioneer called it Lot 7, Salvage, trying not to look at it. Sam saw more than scrap. He saw walls that didn't leak. He saw a roof that couldn't rot. He saw a place to put seed and tools and the parts of himself he wasn't ready to throw away. $50 and a borrowed chain later, people laughed. He let them. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. We tell American stories that smell like rain on dust and sound like boots on old boards, where small choices turn into big lives. If you believe courage can be quiet and miracles hide in plain sight, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your stories keep this porch light on. Back on the farm, the air tastes like metal and coming weather. Sam runs his hand along the container's seam and thinks how anything that keeps a secret long enough becomes part of the ground. He plans to cut the lock tomorrow. Broad daylight. No ghosts. Tonight, sleep. But sleep is a stranger that keeps its hat on. He lies in bed and listens to the wind push the house, to the dog's nails clicking across the kitchen floor, to the way silence strains when it's carrying something heavy. Near dawn, the first patter of rain arrives like someone clapping once in the distance, then another. The thunder follows, patient, freighted, counting miles in its chest. Sam sits up. He doesn't know why until Rusty starts barking. 3 sharp barks, then a low, rolling growl like an engine under a tarp. Sam pulls on his coat. The floorboards are cold. He steps onto the porch and tastes it again. That too-old oil, that paper smoke, that stone. The container waits by the barn, beaded with rain, gathering light. You could mistake it for a tomb, or a door. Characters named using the attached list: Samuel Carter, Rebecca Harper, and others to come. The grinder screams and spits an orange comet tail of sparks as Samuel Carter cuts the rust-swollen lock. Dawn hangs low in pewter, rain worrying the tin roof of the hay barn in a steady whisper. When the hasp finally gives, a cold breath presses outward from the container. Not wind, but something cellar still. Ink, old oil, paper that drowned and dried. Rusty's nails click on wet concrete, then stop. The dog plants himself at the threshold, tail stiff, pupils drinking the dark. Sam lifts the door. It moans. A long, iron animal waking. His flashlight lances into a darkness that eats the first foot of light and then grudgingly returns the rest. Steel ribs, bead welds like scabs, wooden crates stacked in rows that list like teeth in a jaw. On the closest crate, a small blue lighthouse stamp, faded to the color of old lake water. He pries the lid. The crowbar shivers with each nail. Inside, canvas-wrapped ledgers, swollen, edges furred with salt. He opens one and the smell climbs straight into memory. His father's shop ledger, the bank manager's office, invoices and promises. Names in tight, elegant hand: Walter Davis, Elizabeth Lizzie Moore, Raymond Holt. Dates, amounts, tidy columns that march like drilled troops and then break formation around certain names, as if the pen itself hesitated at the cliff of a lie. Thunder tumbles a county away. The flashlight beam stutters while his thumb trembles. He flips pages, faster, then slower. Water permits, grain allotments, election support. A note beside Walter Davis's name. Kept quiet about reservoir runoff, lighthouse owes. A circle around Lizzie Moore's church bake sale, an amount that could keep lights on for a year. Another ledger shows land changing hands for a price that feels like a dare. In the bottom of the crate, envelopes sealed with wax. That same lighthouse pressed into it. He cracks one. Black and white photos ghost up. Holt shaking hands with Sheriff Davis in a church basement. A cash box on a folding table. A map with X's on parcels like bullet holes in paper soil. Rusty flinches, ears pricking toward the open yard. Tires hiss on wet gravel. Sam snaps the container door nearly shut, pinching the seam with 2 fingers so a slice of light remains. A white pickup idles in the drive, wipers thudding. Raymond Holt steps out in a rain slicker the color of new money. His smile is butter on a knife. "Morning, Carter." Voice easy, like he's checking fence posts together. "Heard you picked up a box, might be more than a box." "It's a shed," Sam says, "for seed and tools." "Some sheds are closets for problems," Holt replies, stepping close enough that Sam can taste that minty cologne that always makes him think of wintergreen gum and courtrooms. His eyes flick to the cut lock guts on the ground. "You open it?" "Planning to." "Careful," Holt says. "Certain types of salvage carry liability. Could be chemicals, could be federal. Tell you what, I'll take it off your hands. 500, cash. No paperwork to fuss the bank." Sam feels how the offer wants to sit on his tongue like relief. He swallows it. Not selling. Holt watches him the way a coyote watches a gate latch. Patient, sure it opens. "We'll talk later." He taps the container with 2 fingers. The steel answers with a dull, secret sound. "This county's small, Carter. Nothing stays where you put it." When the pickup drifts away, the rain thickens, and the barn becomes a drum. Sam slides the door wide again, returns to the crates, to the lighthouse. He opens a second, third, fourth. Patterns gather like storm birds. School board contracts kicked toward friends, loans forgiven for the right voters, a list of donors whose generosity curiously coincides with zoning approvals. Every page whispers the same lesson in different grammar. Power holds the flashlight and decides where the beam goes. Under one false bottom, a panel of wood cut to fit like a lie, he finds a tin cash box. The clasp is intact. He pries it with the screwdriver that knows all his bad habits. Inside, bills from different decades wrapped in waxed twine and counted in a careful hand. Beneath the money, a brass key ring with 4 keys, each stamped with a number, and a single note in that prim script. "If you found this, it means the lighthouse failed. Shine your own." He turns the keys in his palm, feeling their notches like braille. A current moves through his ribs. Fear, yes, but something harder, cleaner, not hope, not yet. An instruction, perhaps. By noon, Word, the county's real internet, has already soaked the feed store and the diner. He works without looking at the road, sorting names by type and time, making a map on the barn floor with ledgers and envelopes. Rusty patrols a slow figure 8 at the doorway, a metronome of doubt. The generator coughs again, then settles into that humble drone that makes a farm feel less alone. At dusk, the power to the road dies. The generator stays quiet. The yard goes ink black. Rusty's figure 8 stops. He points his nose at the kitchen like the night itself is creeping under the back door. Sam kills the lantern, lets silence become a shape he can read. Tires on gravel again, slower this time. A truck door, then another. The kind of hush men buy when they don't want to be described. Sam moves like habit. Shotgun from behind the pantry, shells counted by touch. The floorboard with the hollow under it open just enough to swallow the cash box and 2 ledgers. He whistles twice. Rusty slides into the shadow under the kitchen table, a practiced piece of invisibility Rebecca taught him. The back lock jiggles, then clicks with the confidence of someone who has never knocked. 2 silhouettes, wet wool, cigarette breath and aftershave that thinks it's better than rain. The first man's voice is a polite threat. Mr. Holt says a certain container was misallocated. We're here to reallocate. You got papers? Sam asks. Don't need papers. The second man smiles, and that smile is a holster. Then you ain't getting anything, Sam says and racks the shotgun. That sound has a gravity that pulls men backward. The first man raises his hands and calculates distances. The second man tilts his head, measuring angles to the dark. Rusty erupts low and fast, a blur of mud and amber eyes. Knees knock. A curse tears the gentle out of the room. Sam holds his aim and says, keys and phones on the table. Metal clatters. He marches them outside into the sift of rain, bolts the door, and only then realizes he's shaking. Not from fear, but from the strange relief of telling the truth at full volume. When they're gone and the yard is empty again except for the sound of corn talking to wind, he dials the one person whose name the ledgers won't stain. Mary Lou Johnson. Retired editor. Rolodex like a loaded revolver. He tells her as little as he can and as much as he must. Bring me enough to raise the hair on a judge, she says. Not all. Not yet. And Carter? This isn't about being brave. It's about being stubborn longer than they can afford. He drives through rain that changes its mind every mile, a shotgun on the front bench and a dog in the back who watches mirrors like a deputy. Mary Lou's porch light is a lighthouse of the right kind. She meets him with 2 mugs and eyes that catalog weather and men. She opens the ledgers the way a midwife opens a life, then calls a friend at the state attorney's office who still believes laws should embarrass the powerful now and then. Files begin to become copies, copies become extra copies. Extra copies get names that aren't written down. Back home, he sets the brass ring of keys on the table. They look like punctuation waiting for a sentence. The note's last line keeps breathing in the room. Shine your own. He picks up the second key. Somewhere in Miller County, a lock he's never seen is already turning in its sleep. Night scrapes past the windows in a slow tide. Sam parks 2 blocks from Raymond Holt's grain co-op because courage doesn't like to be obvious. The town, slicked by rain, smells like creosote and coffee. Rusty moves at heel, a shadow with a heartbeat. The second key on the ring is shorter, teeth like a grin. It slides into the co-op's side door and finds home with an unnerving intimacy. Inside, the long, sweet breath of stored grain, the sour ghost of last week's donuts, paper dust. Fluorescents tick, tick, tick toward full white. He walks the corridor of framed photos, 4-H kids with prize hogs, ribbon cuttings, Holt with every mayor the town has broken in. In the back office, the air is cooler, the hum of a mini fridge chewing at the silence. A steel cabinet sits plain and patient. Key 3 turns its lock. Drawers open to nothing. Too clean, too careful. He kneels, palms the linoleum, feels the lip of a square that wants to be ignored. Key 4 fits a hidden hasp. The floor panel lifts. Below waits a file box stamped with that same blue lighthouse, its edges taped and retaped the way you'd bandage a wound that keeps remembering itself. Headlights wash the wall. Rusty's ears spear toward the sound. Voices, men who don't remove hats for doors. Holt's cadence sits in the middle of them like a coin in a mouth. Sam drops into the crawl space, lowers the panel, breathes dust older than sense. Boots, Keys. Holt opens the empty cabinet and finds exactly what emptiness means. His silence is a weapon rolling in his palm. Find him, Holt says softly. If you find the dog, shoot it. Sam's hand tightens on Rusty's collar. The dog doesn't make a sound, because he understands English better than most men, and fear better than all of them. Footsteps pass overhead, thud down the hall. When the night agrees that it's safe, Sam eases the panel up, takes the lighthouse box, and ghosts out the way he came, hugging shadow, letting rain eat his footprints. At Mary Lou's kitchen table, the box opens like a jaw. Ledgers that continue where the others stopped. A binder of photographs with dates written twice, once in pen, once in pencil. The pencil dates always earlier, like someone practicing the future. Receipts from a shell company with a P.O. box and a sense of humor. Beacon Supply, LLC. A thumb drive taped to the underside of a divider with blue painter's tape. Holt is a paperman, but even papermen eventually meet an IT guy. Mary Lou's friend from the state, Agent Caroline Pike, answers on the first ring, then stops answering because she prefers driving to talking. By sunup, she's in Mary Lou's kitchen, windbreaker damp, coffee cooling by the inch. She flips pages, takes photos, asks only questions that lead to other questions. When she sees the ledger entry with Walter Davis's name, the corner of her mouth hardens. Dead sheriffs are still evidence, she says. When she finds a list titled Flood Relief Disbursements, she circles 3 parcels that never flooded and underlines 2 church addresses that never asked. What is the lighthouse? Sam asks. A joke that got proud, Mary Lou says. They think they're the light, so any place they stand becomes the coast. Agent Pike leans back, knits what she knows with what she's seeing and puts it on the table clean. This is extortion laundered as civic duty, she says. It's water rights and votes. It is the price of seed. It's who's allowed to own what and for how long. What do we do? Sam asks, because he has land, not answers. We don't go local, Pike says. We go state, then federal if we must. We lock the chain of custody. We make today the day records began, and we do it with sunlight. Men like Holt didn't build a wall. They built shade. Back on the farm, the container waits, rain-pebbled, rusty seams shining like healed cuts. Sam bolts a hasp on the inside so it becomes a vault as well as a room. He stacks ledgers in a geometry that makes sense to his hands. He writes a list of the names that will break his heart versus the names that will not, then tears it up, because hearts don't get a veto. He photocopies. He seals. He hides duplicates at Mary Lou's, at the church behind Lizzie Moore's hymnal cabinet, inside the hollow of the old cottonwood, where Rebecca carved their initials the summer they believed every calendar. Pressure arrives like weather. 2 unmarked pickups idling near his mailbox. A drone that bumbles over the back 40 like a curious hornet. Polite inquiries at the diner about how that handy shipping container is working out. Phone calls from numbers with no past. A letter from the bank reminding him of terms he already reads at night when the ceiling looks like a ledger. Men with city boots ask his hired hand if Sam keeps cash on premises. Holt waves at him from Main Street as if nothing in the world is different when everything is. One afternoon, while Sam is replacing a split hydraulic hose on the tractor, a county code inspector appears with a clipboard and a smile too clean. Unpermitted structure, the man says, gesturing at the container. It was on my truck before it was on my dirt, Sam says. You want to write me up for owning a truck? The clipboard man shrugs. Just doing my job. Me too, Sam says, and wipes his hands on a rag that looks like it lost a fight with history. At dusk, the co-op's accountant, nervous hair, eyes like a overworked calculator, shows up on his porch. He doesn't sit. He doesn't ask to. They'll ruin you, he says without preamble. They'll do it with paperwork so it feels legal. I used to think I could keep my hands clean. Turns out you can't wash shade off. I'm going to leave town. Before I do, understand this. There's a second ledger. He swallows. The one you have is the one you're supposed to find. It keeps the circle small. The real one records the trades they're ashamed of even among themselves. You'll know it when you see it. It's uglier. How do I get to it? Sam asks. The accountant glances at Rusty as if the dog might interrupt him. They keep it close to what they fear the most. What's that? Sunlight, the man says, and leaves like a sin that found a door. 2 nights later, Sam finds the uglier ledger. Not in a vault, in a church. The key with the tooth chipped, number 2, opens a maintenance closet behind the baptismal. Inside, a false panel. Inside that, a safe. Inside the safe, a book bound in vinyl that pretends to be righteous by looking plain. It contains a list of donations that never reached their causes, invoices for water test results that got rewritten, a set of photographs that show a pump secretly rerouting creek flow into Holt's private reservoir during a drought declaration. A page titled Contingencies list names, prices, and instructions for humiliation, foreclosures timed to weddings and funerals, job terminations arranged via whispers, a box labeled Johnson Contain. Next to Mary Lou's name, smear, retired under cloud, leak rumor about brother. There is no rumor to leak. They plan to invent one. He takes the ledger. He photographs every page in the church office copier until the machine smells like it might convert. He returns the book to the safe because he wants to watch them panic about a thing that is still where they left it, waiting to betray them on schedule. He leaves with the copies and the kind of exhaustion that grows bones. By morning, Mary Lou has a plan with a headline and Agent Pike has a plan with a warrant. They pick noon on the courthouse steps because noon is when the county looks itself in the face in storefront glass. Sam hates every part of being in front of that glass. He says yes anyway. Some yeses are heavier than no. The sky is hard blue, the kind that makes failures sharp and victories brighter. People gather in slow ripples, farm caps, Sunday dresses that remember funerals, teenagers pretending they don't care, old men pretending they don't remember. Mary Lou sets a portable speaker on the courthouse steps and checks her mic with a test that sounds like a door creaking open. Agent Caroline Pike stands to the side with two colleagues and a stack of papers thick enough to change weather. Down Sam's lane, a white pickup idles as if it grew there. Holt leans against it, posture casual, eyes not. Two men anchor either side of him, hands near belts even when they're scratching their chins. Sam steps onto his porch with the shotgun in the crook of his arm like an argument he hopes not to have. Rusty sits, a statue with a tail that flicks once. "You ready to stop pretending?" Holt calls, as if shouting across a fence line about a lost calf. "Give me what's mine and keep your dirt." "It isn't yours," Sam says. "It's ours." Holt's smile slides an inch. "You think anyone's going to believe the man who bought a broken box over the man who runs their paychecks? They'll believe paper," Sam says, "and pictures, and the way you flinched when you saw an empty cabinet." Holt glances at the barn at the container, calculates time. "Last chance," he says, and nods at his men. They start up the drive. Sam fires into the air. The sound rips the morning open. Birds evacuate the cottonwoods like confetti torn from a dark pocket. The men stop. Holt puts his hands out, calming, a horse trainer playing to a crowd. Behind him, a Navy sedan noses in, Agent Pike. She doesn't waste voice. "Mr. Holt," she calls. "We have a warrant for records held at Miller County Grain Cooperative and related premises." Holt's laugh is a cough with manners. "You can serve paper," he says. "You can't serve truth." "Truth prints fine," Mary Lou says, stepping out from the sedan, hair in a battle bun, microphone in hand. "Ask tomorrow's edition." Holt chooses movement. He turns, sprinting for the barn with the awkward speed of a man unused to running. Sam doesn't think. He runs too. Rusty launches, a streak of loyalty and mud. Holt reaches the container and yanks the door. It sticks, then relents. He dives inside. Sam goes in after, and the world narrows to steel and breath. Inside the light is a throat of white from the open door, dust motes italicized. Holt grabs the tin cash box from the crate stack and swings it wild. Sam ducks late. The corner kisses his forearm, lightning down to his fingers. He rams his shoulder into Holt's ribs. The man oofs and bounces off a steel rib, knocking a ledger stack into a paper waterfall. Bills fan across the floor like a flock flushed from brush. A photo slides under Sam's boot. Holt and Sheriff Davis shaking hands, the lighthouse stamp grinning in the corner. Holt lunges for a jerry can as if fire can erase math. Rusty hits him behind the knees, every tooth a sentence about consequences. Holt falls, lashes an elbow, catches Sam in the side. Pain detonates. A hard flower opening under his ribs. For a second the container spins. He tastes blood and iron and ink. He clamps Holt's wrist, feels tendons like braided rope, pins him with the slow, inexorable weight of a man who has moved tractors alone. Holt thrashes, kicks a crate, snatches for the shotgun that isn't there because Sam left it at the door on purpose. Outside, feet, voices. Agent Pike calling commands that use the word now properly. A silhouette fills the doorway, squaring the light. Hands where I can see them. Holt freezes the way prey freezes when it realizes it isn't a predator after all. Pike steps in, holsters still latched, warrant already red in her voice. The two men from Holt's truck appear in the doorway and reconsider their life choices with both hands visible. Holt breathes ragged, still trying to win with talk. You think you shut off a lighthouse by closing a door? He says, sneering toward the blue stamp peeking from an envelope like a snide tongue. There'll be another. There always is. People want someone to carry the dark for them, they pay good. Sam lets his grip loosen just enough to answer without turning himself into the thing he's fighting. Maybe the trick isn't killing the lighthouse, he says, chest burning. Maybe it's teaching folks their eyes work at night. Pike cuffs Holt. The click is small, but it rearranges the room. Sunlight reaches deeper into the container. Dust glitter turns honest. She nods at Sam, half approval, half instruction to breathe. He realizes he hasn't. He does. Air tastes like dog, paper, victory, and something sour leaving. Outside, cameras, local then regional, blink awake. Mary Lou's livestream counter spins. She speaks names the county thought were furniture, reads amounts like scripture, and holds up a photograph of a pump rerouting creek flow into Holt's private lake on the very week he lobbied for emergency water restrictions. The courthouse steps absorb a collective inhale. Someone in the crowd says, "Well, I'll be," and someone else says, "I knew it," and most people feel the small shame of not knowing it sooner. Holt tries one last trick, legalese. "Counsel," he demands, like the word should appear with a cape. Pike obliges by reciting the rights that wear out liars. The two men who came with him are introduced to the handcuffs they earned earlier. Rusty gets a scratch from Pike that says she recognizes good deputies when she sees them. Sam leans against the sun-warmed steel, ribs hollering, knees watery. He stares at the horizon where the fields badge the wind with their particular green, and he understands something that isn't complicated but is hard. The container was never a coffin dragged home by a desperate man. It was a door he chose to open, and then hold open, long enough for light to make a map. Mary Lou slides in beside him, microphone off now. "You did it," she says. "No," he answers. "We did it. And a dog." Rusty sneezes. Agreement, probably. Pike steps out of the container with the warrant signed by daylight and the ledgers bagged like artifacts rescued from a flood. She looks at Sam, steady. "This part is over," she says. "The next part is boring. That's how it should be." "Boring," Sam echoes, and feels the word like a blessing. In Miller County, you don't hear a thunderclap about a man like Holt going down. You hear the slow reshaping of conversations at the diner and the feed store, a new music in which folks test the pitch of their own voices. The state people stay long enough to cordon off the co-op office, long enough to make copies of copies. Mary Lou runs the first story with photographs and a headline that uses the word corrosion like a hymn. She doesn't use Sam's name until he says she can. The bank calls with a tone that suggests it has discovered honesty late in life. Turns out liens can be negotiated when the weather changes. A grant arrives, 2 pages of government grammar, and a number that means Sam can fix the well and patch the roof and not sell any acres this year. The community holds a potluck that is really an apology. Folks bring casseroles and advice and the kind of laughter that knows where it's been. Sam says thank you the way he plants seed, carefully with hope disguised as habit. He bolts the container to a concrete pad and paints it the color of winter wheat. He keeps one corner for tools and seed and the other for a table, a chair, and a fan that hums like a good thought. He leaves one section of wall naked, pitted, flaked, because memory needs texture. Mary Lou brings him a framed clipping of the old lighthouse ledger stamp. "To remind you," she says, "that secrets rot and sunlight costs nothing." Rusty gets steak trimmings and a bath and the right to sleep wherever he wants. Mostly that's the doorway, his head on his paws, eyes half closed, ears all business. At dusk, when the prairie turns the color of pennies and forgiveness, Sam sits in the container's cool and listens to the cicadas wind their clocks. He thinks of Rebecca and how she would have liked the way the light pools on the steel. He thinks of debt and drought and how sometimes the way out isn't a road but a door you are willing to open. The town doesn't turn into heaven. It turns into a place where the same work means more. Fields still fail some summers. Men still lie some Tuesdays. But there's a line now drawn in sunlight between help and control. People can see it. That's something. On a Sunday, Mary Lou convinces Sam to stand on the courthouse steps and say a sentence into a microphone. He hates the way the speaker makes him sound like he's talking to a silo. He says it anyway, We don't owe the dark our obedience. That's all. The crowd claps the way someone claps for a song they plan to learn later. Back home, the container is quiet in the noon heat. The air tastes like cut alfalfa and brewed coffee and the tiniest edge of oil that will never leave the steel. Sam sets the brass keys on the table and knows they open more than doors. He writes a note and tapes it inside the container. If you found this, it means the lighthouse failed. Shine your own. Then he smiles, because he understands the joke now and the promise, and because the dog leans his whole life against his leg. If you stayed with this story to the end, thank you for being here. If you want more tales of grit, grace, and the strange little miracles that choose ordinary people, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And when you're ready, watch the next story we picked for you. It's right here waiting. Porch light on.